Odin Lloyd was 27 years old when he was shot dead in North Attleboro, Massachusetts, on June 17, 2013. Soon his murder made international headlines, but this was because his killer was none other than NFL superstar Aaron Hernandez. Odin was an aspiring professional athlete himself, working as a linebacker for the Boston Bandits of the New England Football League. When he developed a friendship with Aaron, at this time Aaron was a star tight end for the New England Patriots. After a chance meeting at a family function, there was little reason to think this would be setting the stage for tragedy. Odin and Aaron soon had connected their lives as a result of their relationships. Lloyd's girlfriend, Shayna Jenkins, was the sister of Aaron's fiancée, Shayana Jenkins. And for an athlete with dreams of making it to the NFL, having a friend like Aaron couldn't be anything but a positive. But he wasn't looking ahead. Odin Leonardo John Lloyd was born on November 14th, 1985, on the island of St. Croix in the Virgin Islands. After a few years in Antigua, the family moved to Dorchester, Massachusetts. Growing up in a dangerous area, he believed that football was his golden ticket, his one shot at success. His potential was seen. At John O'Brien School of Mathematics and Science, he quickly became a reliable linebacker who contributed greatly to getting his team to the championships. However, he soon found himself distracted by girls. The school's gender ratio was heavily skewed towards females, which Mike Branch, his defense coach, said posed a major challenge. His grades dropped significantly, and soon his shot at playing college football essentially evaporated. Mike was also a probation officer in Brockton, and he said that the void of a father figure in his life was obvious. He soon became a de facto big brother to Odin, knowing that he himself was once an inner-city youth with no clear vision of the future. He said, "His talent was off the charts. I could see something special in the kid. If football was something that could get him out of the hood and into college, that would be my goal." Aaron's childhood was surrounded by violence. Both of his parents were arrested during their lives, and him and his brother, Dennis Jonathan Jr., were physically abused by their father, who pushed them towards excellence, especially in sports. Dennis also claimed that Aaron was sexually molested as a child. This happened when a teenage boy was at his babysitter's house, and he forced Aaron to perform oral sex on him, which started when he was 6 and continued for several years. Aaron was constantly in fear of his father, alongside his brother. He once went to school with a bruised eye, and his coach believed that the injury resulted from his father attacking him. His father had once punched Aaron's youth football coach after a dispute about coaching methods. Another aspect of his life was his sexuality. Dennis Sansucci, a friend of Aaron's who experimented with him when they were in high school, said that he was terrified of his father, that he would learn he was gay. Despite this rocky relationship, many believed he never recovered when his father died in 2006, when he was only 16 years old. Aaron became estranged from his mother and moved in with his older cousin, Tanya Singleton. Following his father's death, the family later learned that Terry Hernandez, Aaron's mother, and Tanya's husband, Jeff Cummings, had been having an affair. After this came out, Tanya and Jeff divorced. Then Jeff moved in with Terry. This angered Aaron a lot, and while living with Tanya, he became more involved in criminal activity. In a conversation while in prison, he accused his mother, Terry, of failing to get his ADHD medication, which he believes caused him to struggle in school. But then in another call, it was, "There's so many things I would love to talk to you about, so you can know me as a person, but I could never tell you, and you're gonna die without ever knowing your son." Around high school, he was very popular, being an exceptional football player. He began first dating his future fiancée, Shayana Jenkins, during his time at high school. They had known each other since elementary. At this time, he started to smoke a large amount of marijuana before school, during practices, and during games. His social life included a huge amount of drinking in addition to the drugs. Aaron was committed to playing at the University of Connecticut with his brother DJ, but instead chose to play for Florida. The head coach, Urban Meyer, flew to convince his principal to let him graduate more than a semester early. This meant that he was able to leave and join the team shortly after turning 17. He started with 3 games for the Florida Gators. He finished the season with 2 touchdowns. He was excelling, but then benched in the season opener of his sophomore year due to failing a drug test. He then had 11 games, which he played exceptionally, but later on he stated that he was high on drugs every time he went to play. Urban wanted to remove him from the team for his drug use, but kept relenting. But he finally told Aaron during his junior year that he would not be welcome back for a 4th year and that he would have to try to get picked up by a professional team in the 2010 NFL Draft. He decided to leave his senior year and enter the draft. He attended the NFL scouting combine but couldn't perform any of the physical drills after tearing a muscle in his back during the off-season. On March 17, 2010, he managed to perform all the drills and ranked 4th. During the draft, he was drafted by the New England Patriots in the 4th round. He was the 6th tight end, but despite him being considered top-end prospect, multiple teams reportedly said they chose not to have him because he was a problem. Aaron's draft stock shot right down with all the off-field issues during college, rumors of failed drug tests and character concerns. Indianapolis Colts, Cincinnati Bengals, and Miami Dolphins removed him from their draft boards because of the character concerns. On June 8, 2010, the Patriots signed him to a 4-year, $2.37 million contract, including a $200,000 signing bonus. He played through 2010, and on February 21, 2011, he went through a hip surgery. He entered training camp to help with his injury. On August 27, 2012, he was signed to a 5-year contract with a $39.58 million extension that included a $15.95 million guarantee and a signing bonus of $12.5 million. The signing bonus was the largest of any NFL tight end has received. His $40 million contract was the second largest contract extension ever given, after his teammate Rob Gronkowski's $53 million. He wasn't very popular with his teammates. According to a teammate, he was an outcast. Others said he was often seen seeking attention and seemed unhinged. Aaron had a string of legal issues under his belt by the time he murdered Odin. He said that he believed that people were trying to physically challenge him and were looking to fight. People who knew him said he was a follower who put himself in harm by hanging out with dangerous people. As a Patriot, he hired 2 of his friends from Bristol, both of whom had criminal records, as assistants. One of them, Alexander Bradley, was his drug dealer. His other duties included calming him down during fits of rage and paranoia and getting weapons for him. Aaron had a second apartment that was kept a secret from Shayana. It was used to store drugs and weapons. He would often go there to chain smoke marijuana. In 2012, he told his agent that he got his respect through weapons. Boston police detectives once questioned him outside of a local bar, but the circumstances around the interview are unclear. On April 28, 2007, according to a police report, Aaron was 17 years old and he had consumed 2 drinks in a restaurant in Timbuktu, refused to pay the bill, and was escorted out by an employee. As the manager walked away, he sucker punched him on the side of the head, rupturing his eardrum. The police responded around 1:17 in the morning, and Aaron called Mayer, and he contacted the team's unofficial defense lawyer, Huntley Johnson. The manager told police that he had been contacted by lawyers and the team. A settlement was being worked out, but the team denied this. The police department recommended charging him with felony battery, but the incident was settled out of court with a deferred prosecution agreement. On September 30th, 2007, someone approached a car containing Randall Carson, Justin Glass, and Corey Smith on foot and fired 5 shots while they were waiting at a traffic light after having left a nightclub. Corey was shot in the back of the head and Justin was shot in the arm. Both of them survived. Randall was in the backseat and was unharmed. He told police that the shooter was a Hawaiian or Hispanic man with a large build, weighing about 230 pounds and having many tattoos. He picked out Aaron's photo of a lineup. The police told Mayer's personal assistant that they wanted to see Aaron and 2 other teammates. They kept pushing them to bring the players to the station, but they didn't arrive until 4 hours later. The players spoke with Huntley. The others went to the police station, but Aaron invoked his right to counsel and refused to talk to the police. When police walked into the room to speak to him, they found him with his head down on the table and sleeping, a posture they found unusual for someone in the middle of a shooting investigation. No charges were filed at the time, but due to future arrests, authorities from Massachusetts contacted the Florida police to try and see whether he was involved in this shooting. Detective Tom Mullins was assigned to re-investigate the case and concluded that Aaron wasn't the one who pulled the trigger. Although Randall had picked him out, others had said that the shooter looked like a black male, possibly with cornrows. At 3:45 a.m. on April 30th, 2011, police responded to a fight in front of his rented townhouse in Plainville. A high school friend had been pulled over earlier in the evening after driving him home from a Boston bar. The driver was weaving in and out of lanes and traveling at 120 miles per hour in a work zone and on a highway with a speed limit of 55 miles. The state trooper who pulled the car over did not arrest the driver because he recognized Aaron in the passenger seat. The Plainville police also recognized him and told the both of them to go indoors. Aaron was investigated in connection with a double homicide that took place on July 16, 2012, near the Cure Lounge in Boston's South End. Daniel George Correa de Abreu, 29 years old, and Safira Texiera Furtado, 28 years old, both were immigrants from Cape Verde and living in Dorchester, and they were killed by gunshots that were fired into their vehicle. Witnesses testified that Aaron's silver SUV pulled up next to the victims, and someone from his car yelled racial slurs towards them. Someone from the car then fired 5 shots, killing them both. Police immediately identified Aaron in the club's security camera footage, but thought it was a coincidence that he happened to be at the club that evening. On May 15, 2014, Aaron was indicted on murder charges for the killings of both men, with additional charges of armed assault and attempted murder associated with shots fired at the survivors in the vehicle. The trial began on March 1, 2017. The prosecution case was based on the testimony by Alexander Bradley, his assistant and friend, and a known drug dealer who had been feuding with him about a shooting, which will come later too. But they both said that the other person pulled the trigger. Jose Biaz, Aaron's attorney, argued that the proposed motive was implausible, and he was a suspect of convenience, too close to 2 unsolved murders. Alexander alleged that Aaron was angry that the victims had spilled a drink on him at the nightclub several hours earlier, and that's why he decided to kill him. Security cameras confirmed that he was in the club for less than 10 minutes. Around that time, he calmly posed for a photo with a fan and left alone, contradicting Alexander's testimony that he left with him. His attorney argued that there was no physical evidence tying him to the murders and the police investigation was not done properly. For one, they kept the victims in the car and towed it with them in it from the scene. On April 14, 2017, Aaron was acquitted of the murders and most of the other charges, but found guilty of illegal possession of a handgun. In January 2013, Aaron and Alexander partied at Cure again. At 2:20 a.m., Alexander pulled over on Southeast Expressway after his vehicle was seen speeding at 105 miles per hour. According to the state police, he was wobbling drunk. Aaron tried to get his friend out of trouble, saying that he was Aaron Hernandez. It's okay. However, Alexander was still arrested for drunk driving. In February 2013, Aaron, Alexander, and several others went to a Florida strip club where they ran up a bill of $10,000. Aaron began to worry about 2 men sitting across from them, thinking they were plain-clothed Boston police officers. Alexander later said he told Aaron that they were probably tracking them as a part of their investigation into the double homicide outside of Cure. Both of them had a troubled relationship at this point. Alexander claimed that on February 13, 2013, during the same trip, he woke up in a car with Aaron pointing a gun at his face. The next morning, police found him lying in a parking lot and bleeding from a bullet hole between his eyes. He survived but lost his right eye. He did not cooperate with the police, but instead wanted revenge. The pair sent over 500 text messages in the next 3 months, which included death threats and attempts at extortion. Alexander told Aaron that he had semi-automatic weapons, bulletproof vests, and a crew that ran 6 deep. Aaron's agent tried to settle the matter quietly, but that didn't work. Alexander demanded $5 million to keep silent, and Aaron said $1.5 million instead. Alexander then asked for $2.5 million, but Aaron did not respond and sought his lawyer. On June 13, 2013, Alexander filed a civil lawsuit for damages against Aaron in a Florida federal court. He withdrew the suit 4 days later, giving the two a chance to work out a settlement without the media knowing about it. On September 3, 2013, Aaron's lawyers filed a postponement request in federal court until his murder charges were resolved. In February 2016, he reached a settlement with Alexander over the lawsuit. The terms were not disclosed. On May 11, 2015, Aaron was indicted for witness intimidation in relation to the Alexander shooting, since Alexander was reportedly a witness to the 2012 Boston double homicide. The intimidation charge for Aaron carried a maximum penalty of 10 years in prison. This charge was included in his trial for the double homicide, which began on March 1, 2017. During the trial, it was revealed Alexander had texted his lawyer about the shooting in a deleted message, which read, "Now you sure once I withdraw the lawsuit I won't be held on perjury after I tell the truth about me not recalling anything about who shot me?" Aaron was later acquitted of the charge of witness intimidation by a jury on April 14, 2017. They also acquitted him of all the other charges in the murders of Daniel and Safiro, except for finding him guilty on one count of illegal possession of firearms. At the height of this, Aaron travelled to California with his fiancée and daughter to have a shoulder surgery in 2013. During this time, Shayana called the police twice in less than a week, alleging that Aaron was drunk and violent. In the first incident, he put his hand through a window. His brother and friends later said that there were drugs and guns in the rented apartment, but police determined that Shayana and the child were not in danger and never searched the building. His brother found him alone on the roof of the building one night, looking defeated and rubbing the barrel of a gun against his face. Odin had 2 run-ins with the law that led to arrests in 2008 and 2010, though both cases were dismissed. Even though Odin did get into Delaware State University, he had to leave the school when the financial aid he needed did not come through. Taking a job at a Massachusetts power company eventually sent him to Connecticut, where he met Shayna Jenkins, who quickly became his girlfriend. Though his new relationship interfered with his semi-pro practices with football, he believed he had found the love of his life. Attending a Jenkins family gathering with his girlfriend, Odin then met Aaron, who was the fiancé of Shayna's sister, for the first time. They had lived very different lives. The latter lived in a $1 million mansion, while Odin wore flip-flops that were so old he was practically walking barefoot on the ground. But they became fast friends. To those who know Odin, they understood why someone like Aaron would befriend him. Bandit's teammate J.D. Brooks saw Odin as an utterly regular, humble man. He said, "I think he just wanted to feed his family and have a good life. He wasn't about glamour and glitz, he was just a simple guy." Bandit's receiver Omar Phillips was aware of the friendship Odin had formed with Aaron, though it was one Odin rarely, if ever, bragged about. Omar said Odin had told him that he thought Aaron was a loner. He was a loner himself. He was starstruck, but he wasn't hungry for that lifestyle. That wasn't his personality. There was only one criminal act that ever stuck to Aaron, however, for Odin, it was for organising and executing his murder in 2013. The inciting event in Odin's murder occurred at a Boston nightclub called Rumour on June 14, 2013. Prosecutors asserted that Aaron was enraged when he saw Odin chatting with men whom he had previously had an altercation with, and he was seen storming out. It's also been reported that there was an incident between the two after Aaron showed Odin his gun collection. It only took 2 days for him to text 2 of his out-of-state friends, Carlos Ortiz and Ernest Wallace, to ask for help in dealing with Odin's perceived betrayal. "You can't trust anyone anymore," he wrote to them. After Ernest and Carlos arrived from Connecticut, Aaron left his home and got in their car. Then, the 3 of them picked up Odin at his house around 2:30 a.m. on June 17th. It was the last time he would be seen alive. By this point, Odin apparently sensed that something was not right about the entire situation. He then texted his sister as they were driving around and discussing the night at Rumour. He wrote, "Did you see who I am with?" Then another saying NFL. The last message he ever sent read, "Just so you know." Workers at an industrial park in North Attleboro said they heard gunshots between 3:23 a.m. and 3:27 a.m. Odin's body was discovered in that same park later that day, June 17th. Around 3:25 a.m., surveillance footage showed a car driving around into the industrial park where Odin was found. After roughly 40 minutes, the car is seen leaving. 5 casings from a .45 caliber gun were found near his body, which had 5 gunshot wounds to his back and side. Adding to the evidence, a piece of gum with Aaron's DNA was stuck to a gun shell casing, and the same rental car that appeared in the park was rented under Aaron's name. For people like Mike Branch, his defense coach, frustration with Odin's last choices remained with him. He said, "Those thoughts are going through my head. Odin, if you felt fear, why did you get in the car? It had to be trust, man." Aaron's involvement in the murder was suspected almost immediately as he was the last person seen with him. On June 18th, police searched his home in connection to the murder in a park about 1 mile away from his home. The following day, he reassured his coach that he had nothing to do with the shooting. Despite this, he was barred from the stadium. The team also decided, a week before his arrest, to cut all ties with him if he was arrested on any charges related to the case. On June 26, he was charged with first-degree murder. He had just signed a $40 million extension on his contract with the New England Patriots, a contract that was terminated within hours of him being charged. He was released from the team within 90 minutes of his arrest. All corporate sponsorship deals he had also been terminated. When video evidence emerged showing him returning home on the morning of the murder with a gun in his hand, his fate was definitely sealed. On August 22, 2013, he was indicted by a grand jury for the murder, and he pled not guilty on September 6th. He was found guilty on all charges in Odin Lloyd's murder in April 2015 and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Though Carlos Ortiz and Ernest Wallace were both charged with first-degree murder, Ernest was acquitted of the murder charge but found guilty of being an accessory after the fact. He received a 4.5 to 7-year sentence. Carlos pleaded guilty to accessory after the fact and received the same sentence in exchange for prosecutors dropping the first-degree murder charge. He was strangely content while in jail. He told his mother, "I've been the most relaxed and less stressed in jail than I have out of jail." He was punished on multiple occasions for breaking rules, including screaming and banging on his cell door. Over the course of his 4 years, he turned to the Bible and became more religious. The prison officials seemed to turn a blind eye to his drug use and neglected to safeguard him. A fellow inmate reported multiple instances of him needing medical attention after smoking too much K2. Aaron spoke to Shayana on the phone and often twice a day, but she was facing perjury charges related to his arrest. He only saw his daughter when Shayana's mother brought her to visit. While in prison, he built a new relationship with his mother, Terry. While being held at the Bristol County Jail, he was kept in a segregated unit that normally housed the mentally ill and violent. He asked to move out of there, but Sheriff Thomas Hodgson would not allow it. He believed that Sheriff exploited his imprisonment for publicity. After his conviction of Odin Lloyd's murder, he was transferred to cell 57 at South Bronowski Correctional Center, a maximum security prison where inmates spent 20 hours a day in their cells. In the 2 years he spent in prison, he was disciplined dozens of times. His lawyer claimed that he was taunted relentlessly by guards. While there, he continued to work out and anticipated returning to the NFL. With the news of his acquittal on the charges of murdering Daniel and Safira were read on the news, the inmates gathered around the TV and cheered. They kicked cell doors and cheered when Aaron returned to the prison that night. In the 9 days between his acquittal and death, he gave his food and books, even his TV, to his fellow prisoners, but gave no indication that he intended to take his own life. 2 days before his death, news reporter Michelle McPhee appeared on the Kirk and Callahan sports radio show, during which she and the 2 hosts used innuendo to imply that Aaron was gay. It has been suggested that this outing may have played a role in his suicide. Ultimately, Aaron would only end up serving 2 years of his life sentence before he took his own life on April 19, 2017, by hanging himself using his bedsheets in his cell. Experts examining his brain post-mortem found a shocking amount of brain damage. Dr. Anne McKee, a neuropathologist who specializes in chronic traumatic encephalopathy at Boston University, conducted the examination of his brain. She said she never saw such extensive damage in the brain of an athlete younger than 46. This was studied after he died, as the neurological disease had been linked to behavioral and mood problems as well as problems with thinking. His lawyers cited ab initio, arguing that his conviction should be vacated because he died before his appeals were exhausted. That was then overruled in 2019 following an appeal from the prosecution and Lloyd's family. In the end, the motives for murder are still not known. His high school teammate said that being drafted by the Patriots was the worst thing that the NFL could have done because it put him back into proximity to the criminal friends he had in Connecticut.